we're talking about, and I would actually really like to hear it because, as you know, I've not heard yet from the podcast for tomorrow about, you know, setting kind of your to-do list, and the problem with to-do lists of the fact that everything is just considered equal in terms of urgency and importance. And so this is the quadrant that came out of what we talk about in Ignite, but talk a little bit about what Ben Kinney was doing.
He talked about high impact and low impact task, and low effort and high effort. And he said, if it's a high impact with a low effort, and or if it's a high impact on customer, what's the word that you're trying to attraction, high impact on customer attraction, and a low effort, then it's ideal. So just identifying high impact, low impact, and low effort and high effort. And his to-do list, his daily to-do list is not actually a to-do list. It's it can be done for a day, a week, or a month, but it's understanding your priority. And guys, this is all in the stuff I'm talking about is in the Reedy and Red Facebook page. Make sure you watch or listen to that. It's 22 minutes, and it's what we're going to discuss tomorrow morning at 8:30 Power Up. And it was just such great information. So it's very similar to this. So go for it, Michael.
Yeah. So, you know, this conversation, and we were just answering that question where Debbie was like, tell me where something could be urgent and not important, because I kind of feel like if something's urgent, then there's always a sense of importance to it. And I gave the example that I've said before where maybe you have a teenage kid that needs to be picked up or needs to be taken home. That doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to break from your afternoon. There might be another person, you might have a support system, that child might have a friend whose mother could also pick up. It's something that's urgent that needs to get done, and yet it's not necessarily important enough or meaning from that perspective where you're the only person who can do that. Of course, we get the example from other people. This is where I get yelled at all the time. Well, what if I don't have a support system? This is just, for me, what's something that has to be time sensitive but could also be leveraged is the way that I see urgent, not important.
I love the example from Amber Bennett because Audrey's forgotten her lunch a couple of times. And I know that with Lindsay, G has forgotten her lunch a couple of times, and she's had to drive back and give her a lunch. And I've done that with Audrey as well. And Amber told us in the lunchroom over at the old building, she said, not me. If I left my lunch at home, my parents would say, bet you won't do that again. So, you know, we might think it's urgent and important at that moment as a parent, and then is it? So.
Right. And so that is from that perspective where we can start to say certain things like, is it important for me to get my dry cleaning? Yes, it's important. It might not be urgent, right? Because I will eventually run out of things. I need to order new business cards. Is neither urgent nor important. I know that some people are like, oh no, but I love my business cards. Well, how have those business cards been working out for you for the last 6 weeks? All of a sudden you found out that they weren't very important. So the thing that's here is you can start to look at what are the things that I said that I wanted to do. I know that with Yvette, right? Yvette in coaching, she has a goal that by Friday that she wants to have her buyer's guide complete. So Yvette, would you say that that's urgent? Would you say that it's important? Would you say that it's not urgent? Important? Where would you think that your buyer's guide being completed would fall in these quadrants?
To me, it's urgent and important because without that, I feel like I can't process the Zoom calls the best with new clients to get it.
And if you were to have to, if I called you and I said, hey, you know, Tiffany gave me your contact information. She said that you could help me buy a house and I'd like to talk to you this afternoon. Do you need that buyer's guide in order to do it?
No. So I could see what you mean. It could be not urgent, but important to you, right? Because it does have things that you would need to be able to answer, maybe help you answer through some questions.
Absolutely. And it could be important to your business. It could be important to your branding. It could be, so I would definitely say, yeah, probably would fall into the important, not urgent quadrant that's there, right? Let's see. So another thing that Yvette, you've set a goal, and I just know this because of coaching. I see you, Rachel. If
To make sure
you've set a, yeah,
whoever has their TV.
someone's TV is on.
Someone's got a TV going.
So Yvette, that would be the question where she's got a goal of having a conversation with 50 people from her sphere and 25 for sale by owners to be done this week. And the reason why she's wanting to do that is to make sure that she's going after now business and future business. So for someone who's not Yvette, would you say that that is, where would that fall in her?
Just 1 minute. I gotta hang up on something.
Anyone?
Ask the question again, Michael.
So Yvette has a goal this week of having 25 conversations with for sale by owners and 50 people from her sphere.
Urgent.
So where would that fall into the quadrants?
I would have said it was urgent and important because that's going to be the future business, isn't it?
Yeah. So when we talk about our top 20%, what are the activities that we can do to ensure our future success? Then that would be one of those things that would fall into the must get done first quadrant. Now, to your point, Rachel, you were kind of saying what's going to be time intensive, right? What's going to be labor intensive? And then the other question is, you know, what on the list, what on the tasks that I have here, how many of them are things that only I can do? So am I the only control freak that's on this coaching call?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Gina, does he actually know how to fold the towels correctly?
No.
Right? Of course not. So, and I know that feeling where you just stand and hover and wait for them to move so you can go back through and just do it the right way. So now we have a conversation, which is how many things that are on my to-do list this week am I putting the burden on myself, and then am I carrying extra stress because I don't know how to ask for help?
Or accept the help that you have.
Yeah, or accept the help that you have. I mean, clean
How many
towels are,
people really see our towels? And Gina, I'm there with you, girl. I'm the only person I've ever met that knows how to fold my towels correctly.
right. And that's only one thing. Maybe it's a flyer. Maybe it is again to the buyer's guide aspect. How much am I trying to sit down and completely reinvent the wheel in something in my world that if I was just to take a few minutes to see if something had been done beforehand, how many hours would I save if I found a model of a buyer's guide that I just wanted to rip off and duplicate right there? So that's really where, when we start to look at the things that are here on the running list, right? Rachel, do you have a legal pad next to you with a to-do list?
I do not. I'm using my Green Kinney list. And look,
Okay, good.
My lipstick on it and everything. I've been writing it.
Good. I find that this has been really helpful for me. And the reason why I say that is there's a lot of things that I would put in that bottom right quadrant, that not urgent, not important. I remember having a conversation with my coach about getting leverage to help with the coaching program, to help from an administrative perspective. And it was because I was doing a really good job of making sure that the 20% was getting done, but I wasn't even it wasn't even that balls were being dropped. They were never even being picked up to begin with, right? So I know that that's probably a unique situation where I don't focus on the 80% at all, where some people might spend a lot of time because that's where the busyness of the business sits, is in that place where we can go down a rabbit hole and spend 5 hours and come up and go, I have this really pretty flyer and I have no one to give it to because I'm not lead generating. Or I've built a really great buyer's guide, but I have no buyers to work with because my only buyers came from open houses and I haven't done one in 2 months, right? What are your thoughts on being able to use this as opposed to just a general to-do list?
I I think it helps with anxiety, because I know that Dana used to share this with people that, and then Elijah did. Because we get overwhelmed with the things that we think we have to get done. And then when you stop and say, okay, what's urgent and important? Those are the biggest fires. And I'm going to go back and say, listen to the podcast for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
He uses the example of, when we're trying to get things done, there are these fires that pop up that keep us distracted. He said, so let's imagine you're in your house and there's a whole bunch of fires. Which ones would you put out first? And I used that example with somebody in the office earlier. And I said the most dangerous one or the biggest one, right? You're not going to put out the spark before you put out the fire.
Well, and I think too, because I think that was Jeff's comment, right? Which was the most dangerous. So am I going to put out the fire that's in the backyard, or am I going to put out the fire that's right next to the fuel tank? Right. So then now we have to go with, it's not just the biggest, because I promise you that there's going to be a client at 9:05 in the morning who's going to blow up your phone thinking that they're the biggest, most important thing in your world that day. And they absolutely fall in the not urgent, not important column for your 9 to 11 o'clock in the morning, but they don't know that. And so they want to go a little crazy. Right? She's Sylvia. That is that woman. That's a past client that her world, everything revolved around her schedule. And if you didn't answer, then you weren't giving her the level of customer service that she was looking for. So sometimes we have to come to a place of understanding and be really solid and confident in our business that we're doing what is best for our clients, we're doing what's best for our business, and then making sure that we're setting those realistic expectations. I think more often than not, and to Sam's point earlier in this call, for the females that are on this call who might carry a little bit of extra pressure by doing the juggling that is of life, it's how often, also going back to that question, I have one, she's very close to me in my world, especially professionally, where she's naturally a person who just is a capacity person. So she wants to take on more, wants to take on more, wants to take on more, thinks that she can do a lot. And then what ends up happening is that she breaks down, and she breaks down from all of the weight from the things that she voluntarily took on because she was not willing to sit down and delegate correctly. And so I know that for a lot of us, we're not used to that experience of making sure that we can leverage our support system, leverage our vendors, leverage some of the other agents in the office, leverage our leadership. I just want to make sure that you know the resources that you have and that you're using them effectively so that you're not harboring a lot of that stress without it being necessary.
I was going to say, actually, myself, I sometimes find, honestly, that I would rather grout the bathtub than do a simple phone call to, like, there is a FISBO I have to call. It's around the corner. I bike by this house every day, and I've taken a picture of the sign of the house. I've, in my head, gone through the phone call I'm going to have. And there's something that I honestly, as I said, I'd rather grout the whole house and do every other chore rather than do that, because I'm scared. I'm scared of something. I'm scared of being told no. And I've been listening to all these different things. And I have to remind myself that that is going to be far less worse, or far, nowhere near as bad as not having the paycheck in 5 months. That's worse than being said, no, thank you, don't ever call me.
Yeah, let me ask you, do you have that listing right now?
No, I don't.
Okay, so when you call and they tell you no, will you be in the exact same position that you're in right now?
Exactly. I haven't lost anything, only something to gain. And it's up in here, and it's fear, and it's procrastination. It's putting aside those things that I really should do, and it doesn't make me feel good. I see my children do it when they procrastinate, and I'm all like, why do you put off, tomorrow what you should be doing today? If only I listened to my own messages of wisdom, of motherly wisdom. But the reality is I do the same thing.
Well, I could have you just pick up the phone and call them right now, since you already have it in your phone.
No,
but I'm not going to do that.
I will do it if I get it.
You can send it to me. You can send me the info. I'll call them.
I bet you will.
I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, I'll take it off your hands if you want me to.
Yeah, no. I will do it. I will do it.
Yes, of course. And so those are one of, Rachel has talked about this before. You have a gas pedal and you have a brake pedal, right? So when you drive past a home that has a for sale sign in front of it and you choose to continue to move past it, you're making a choice. Now, a way of feeling productive, and this is just a challenge, because it happened to me too, is I would park the car, or I would at least brake, and I take a picture and I go, oh, I'm gonna call them later. That's me being productive. Honey, did you call anybody? No, but look at this, right? I found, there's a really great one. Well, the hell did you do with it? Nothing, but it's really, like, look at it. I know who I'm supposed to call. And then it's 4 days later, hey, did you ever call that? Nope, not yet, but I'm going to. We're making the choice in terms of procrastination. Sam, you hit it right on the head. It's not just you, right? I wish to tell you that your internal torture is just unique to yourself, and that we look forward to your book. And yet we've all written the book already, because I've done it. I know Rachel's done it, until you get to a certain part where you just realize that there's other ways around it. So one of the things that I would do, and of course you're going to have to figure out COVID and all of that stuff, but on the back of a business card, oh, there's those business cards. If you're actually going to use a business card, then I would use as vague as possible. I'm interested in your house, call me. That's what I would handwrite on the back of my business card, and I would put it in their door. I'm not saying if I'm interested. I didn't say I'm interested in buying it. I didn't say if I had a buyer. I didn't say anything. I just said, I'm interested in your home, call me. And the vagueness and yet the sense of urgency that seller might be feeling, that's how I was able to get more information than if I tried to leave my biography on their doorstep, right? Simply asking questions, getting in front of them. And to your point, by picking up the phone, you don't know if you have anything. You literally have nothing to lose, because it was already something that you didn't have, minus what we sometimes associate with our ego, right? We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be denied. We don't want for someone to tell us no. And yet they're not telling us no, especially when it comes to for sale by owner. Why is anyone a for sale by owner?
They want to save money.
Yeah.
They're going to save money.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I hear you say is you're like a lot of the people who tried to sell it themselves before they listed with me, that netting the most amount of money was the most important thing to you. Is it fair to assume that that's the same thing for you, that you're hoping to just net the most? Well, of course. And if you could do that on your own, I would love for you to do that. However, if I could show you that I could net you more money than you can by yourself, is that worth 15 minutes of your time? I'll set a timer on my phone. If you like what I'm saying, I'll continue to speak. And if you don't, then it won't take any more than 15 minutes of your time. And that's it. I mean, we already know what they want. They want to net the most amount of money. If I can show them, now this is the question, this is the follow-up. Well, they're asking $390,000 and they're in a neighborhood that nothing is sold over 340. I didn't say that I could net them more than what they're asking.
Right.
What I said is I can net them more than what they can do themselves. Statistically speaking, for sale by owners end up listing 90% of the time, 90% of the time with an agent within 6 weeks, number one. Number two is that we know that 89% of buyers who bought were using a buyer's agent. So it's really important that we're advertising to the broker community first and then the buyer community. And then lastly, an average agent based on the National Association of Realtors is able to get a for sale by owner 12% more than what the for sale by owner can do themselves. And I'm an above average agent. So the average agent has a list price to sales price ratio of 96%. And I have a list price to sales price ratio of 98.7%. So on top of what anyone else can do, I can actually get you 2.5% more, 2.7% more than the average agent. So having some of these scripts, that's why script practice during lead gen, lead follow-up, negotiate contracts, scripts and role play is here, and going on appointments. The reason why scripts and role play are a part of our 20% is so that we can feel really confident that we're making the phone call. And when you call enough for sale by owners where the answer has been yes, if someone's saying no, they're not denying you. It's just that they're not ready to receive whatever information you have. And I think that can be really, really helpful. Yeah, Sam, you're muted.
Am I unmuted?
Now you are.
Okay, with the stuff you just said, do you have something which actually has those facts?
Yeah, so those are probably 3 different scripts that have been put together. There is some information. So the 40 most common objections being handled, that document that I had sent out that we had been spending the last 2 weeks on Thursdays at noon. Sam, I'll make sure that you get a copy of. Anyone else who wants that, just say that you want it and I'll make it available. In addition to that, you've got a lot of the scripts out of Ignite, and then I'm very excited to see what scripts we get out of Bold Pivot this week, to see what we get. But a lot of it, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is handling objections. A lot of it is up here, quite frankly. I need to write more of them down, and usually someone asks for them, so I can definitely do that.
Please get something like that together with those little bullet points. Then I could go in, because it's all very well saying I can earn you this much more, but then I need to back it up with something. Why can't I? How can I?
Well, we always love storytelling. To me, is one of the best things that you can do to get someone in alignment with you, right? So and I know, Sam, we've talked about this one before, especially with Brit buyers wanting to come in at such a low price and kind of work their way up from negotiation. So having the conversation with someone and asking, and so I'll just script practice real quick with you, role play with you real quick, Sam, to be able to unmute yourself. So Sam, have you ever tried to buy something on the marketplace or at a garage sale or on Craigslist?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever intend to pay full price when doing that?
No.
And why did you not?
Because I like a deal.
Okay. And so do most people, especially when they're dealing directly with a seller. They're assuming that person is also societally already understanding that we believe that if I'm going to buy something from a garage sale, or if I'm going to buy something on the marketplace, that we're looking to do a little bit of haggling. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Now, let's say on the opposite, let's say that you go into Target and you see that there's a new 70-inch screen TV, and just go with me that that's actually something that you want. And it says that it's $800, and you tell the person who is dressed in a uniform and is there working professionally on behalf of Target that you've got $600. What are they probably going to tell you?
Show me the door.
Yeah. And the reason being is because consumer psychology, we're already willing to spend a little bit more when there's a licensed or there's a sales professional involved with the transaction. We are so used to, when dealing directly with a seller, that we're going to get a deal, versus when there's a salesperson that's involved. This is no different than that time when people are looking to buy a home from a for sale by owner. They think that there's way more wiggle room than psychologically if they were dealing directly with a salesperson. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And that's, quite frankly, that's why an average agent can get 12% more than a for sale by owner, because the for sale by owner has already been thinking, well, I am saving on the commission, so I guess I can go ahead and cut a little bit in this area. There's always going to be wiggle room when dealing with FSBOs. So working with an aggressive salesperson who's going to market it effectively and show the value, that's why we have much less room between our list price to sales price ratio.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so that was a little off topic, which is totally fine, but I just want, for people who, besides me, who on here loves scripts? Gina?
I can't say I love them.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, I guess I've never used them. I always feel like when I'm using a script, when it's in front of me and I'm using a script, I just sound very salesy.
Okay.
I don't sound natural.
Sure. I think probably the best response is Joyce in the chat box that says, I do not like them, but I respect them.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's so important, because your confidence usually is going to be directly correlated to a level of preparedness that you had. So to Sam's point, would Sam feel more comfortable calling that for sale by owner if she felt like she had all of that arsenal like in her war chest to be able to have that conversation and to be able to know the facts and be able to pump that information out to be an informed person, probably a little bit more than calling and not knowing the answer. That's why it's so important to me to have scripts, even if I'm going to paraphrase, but just the fact that I have it where it's run through my memory before, I have somewhat of a map as opposed to being completely in the darkness. And the point here is for some people that are going to say, well, you know, you sound salesy. Maybe to a certain extent. I have to wrap that in human emotion, and I have to wrap that in questions and being in the people business first. So that's why it's so important that when we're having that conversation with a for sale by owner, that we're going back to the things that matter, the things about Ford, right? Their family, occupation, recreation, dream. Why are you selling? Is it to move closer to family? Is it to be closer to your grandchildren? What's it going to mean for you and your family to be able to sell this home at a profit? Based on the currency exchange, what is $160,000 more for the fact that you've been able to hold on to this investment and it's been able to do that over the course of the last few years? What could you possibly do with that $160,000 that we're not currently doing? There's a gentleman, I remember taking a listing, he was $80,000, he was listed with someone else, he was $80,000 over what we were suggesting, and we were still even a little high. And asking the question, well, what's the difference between you selling this building now as opposed to you just renting it out? What would be the difference between, instead of prolonging getting the full cash out, what would having the full cash out now mean for you? Well, he and at that point, his new wife, they were going to be able to travel significantly for months at a time, and they wouldn't necessarily have to worry because they'd have that money. Now we have motivation. Now I can layer it with statistics and data and all the things that I want to do, because I can always bring it back to the fact that selling this home as opposed to renting it right now is a direct correlation to him being able to provide the life and experiences for his bride that he had promised and that he wanted to do. It was directly correlated to the transaction. And that's where scripts and questions, I think scripts are nothing more than the questions that we can ask to get to the outcome that we want. When you use scripts or when you phrase scripts in that way, it makes it really, really easy. That's where asking the question or the challenge of how often do you write questions, right? So who here feels like they're a really good question asker? Sam says kind of. Gina's giving me half hair flip. Angela's resting her eyes. I'm just kidding. Joyce is saying meh. And so one of the things that was very interesting is that Diana Kokoska used to challenge the MAPS coaches to write 50 questions a week, and that they would have to submit those questions to Diana that were coaching questions. And actually, in order to hold her accountable, my MAPS coach is sending her 50 questions to us every week so that she's holding herself accountable. I'm not asking you necessarily to write 50 questions a week. It's from that perspective, though, that we would be able to look in and see what are some of the things that we could be asking that are going to get us the outcome that we're looking for. Could I write 10 questions around Ford, right? Can I write 10 questions about someone's family? Could I write 10 questions about someone's occupation, about someone's recreations, about someone's dreams? Just so that when I'm in those conversations, when it's time for small talk, I have 10 different questions to choose from. I have 10 different follow-up questions that I can lead with that's going to get me to the outcome that I want. Joyce said, do you sell replacement batteries for an Asus C302C Chromebook? I'm not sure if you meant for that to be in this chat box or for the Geek Squad at Best Buy. However, I personally do not sell replacement batteries. And I don't know if it's just me being salesy. It was for the Geek Squad. Okay, great. I was just trying to be an asshole, but that was perfect. Thank you, Joyce. All right, so someone besides me, I want to hear some of your thoughts from today, talking about productivity with our time, making sure that we're checking in on the total hours worked versus the hours on our top 20%, using this quadrant for the to-dos, as well as just a general conversation around scripts. I'd love to hear what you've taken away and what you plan to implement into your business.
Stopping procrastination. I listened to something this morning which said, or something to do with that bold, which says, until my number one thing is done, everything else is a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do need to bear that in mind.
Yep. That's Gary Keller right there.
Yeah.
You know, to have the number one brokerage in the world, to be a billionaire, among other things, he still is doing lead generation every morning, which I think is fascinating, because that is a direct correlation. He's either recruiting talent for international, or he's recruiting agents to come and join Keller Williams. So he's either always looking for someone to work and build his business, or he's looking for someone who could benefit from Keller Williams. And I just think that that's a really great thing. Read that quote one more time, Sam.
Until my number one thing is done, everything else is a distraction.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Gina, what are you getting out of it? I see that you're unmuted.
Well, mine is just, figuring out what those important things are and what's important, and I don't know what is necessary and what's important and not necessary, and it's just letting go of some of those things that, as you know, I always say it's not perfect yet. So I just don't put it out there, so getting past that.
Right. Okay. Good. Angela, what's going on with you? Oh, Yvette, go ahead.
Sorry, because I gotta run out. I would say the distractions and sticking back to my schedule, getting back into my routine schedule, even if that means taking one day off during the week still, going back to my routine schedule, because I just feel the last 6 weeks I've been distracted way too much. So going back to that distracting and the 4 points that you said, but making it known what's important, what's not important in those.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Angela?
Well, I came in a little bit late, so
That's right.
I didn't get like the first 30 minutes essentially. But I think for me, I feel like I've been focusing really well on the 20%. My issue right now is getting the little things done that are going to help me in the future generate those things, as well as I've not been able to do as much lead generation as I would like, because I have contracts and I'm still adjusting to having to do all the stuff that goes along with those, and having a few in the pipe it takes up a lot of that time. And so just adjusting and being flexible to be able to handle that and still find the time to do the lead generation and follow up with the other buyers that are still in the pipeline. So kind of similar to Yvette is the routine. My routine's really been thrown off. I'm sure like everybody else's recently. So trying to just get back into that flow. And I think the contract thing is a good thing, but it's easy when all you're doing is lead generation because you don't have any contracts. And then once you have some, it's like, oh, I got to do all these other things for this because that's the urgent stuff, right?
Right.
But so is lead generation, because then I'm going to have to get that once those contracts close. Where are the other ones? So trying to figure out that has been the biggest part for me. And then still trying to brand yourself and build your business and grow at the same time. That 80% of those little things that kind of help over the long run. I've not been able to do really any of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you've hit the nail on the head of where the conversation around transaction coordinators come into play, right? I'm not necessarily telling you that that's the path that I am. I'm just saying that you're not necessarily needing to do that today, but eventually it will come to a place where realizing that the 15 hours to 20 hours that you're spending on paperwork per transaction, if it was built into your buyer broker agreement, if it was built into your listing agreement, so that we weren't tangibly hanging on to that, $325 price tag that we're seeing every time that we put a contract under. You say $325 divisible by 20 hours, when the activities that you're doing of lead generation, I might be able to take a listing, and that listing between the time that I took it to the time that it closed was about 10 of my hours, not including paperwork management. Yeah. Well, then now I'm saying that those 10 hours divisible by a $7,000 commission I made $700 an hour, where I was choosing to do the job that a transaction coordinator could do, that again, $325 divisible by 20 hours of paperwork, let's say. And now if your transaction coordinator can do it in 5, that's because that's their profession. I'm saying that you, the person who can't figure out how to do things on DocuSign, not Angela, I'm speaking mainly to myself. It would take me 20 hours, what's going to take a transaction coordinator 5, but freeing that up so that I could spend that to do the little things, to build my brand, to do the lead generation. You will eventually get to a point where you're like, this absolutely falls into the urgent, but not important for me to be the one to do category. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, even this morning, I have a contract to sign, and I'm having to do the other agent's work too, because he's missed 20 initials on 5 of the, I'm like, and so it's just back and forth, and have to have him do it. It's that wasted so much time just getting somebody else to do their job, so having a transaction coordinator, that would be very nice, but I don't think I'm there yet. But
I understand. You're close though. The second that you start choosing to do, and that's the thing, when we start to look at what we're doing, and we think to ourselves, what is the price associated to every activity that I do, right? So if I'm building a flyer, what would I pay someone to do this activity?
Yeah.
And so then that means that I'm choosing to do a $15 an hour job as opposed to my $700 an hour job.
Yeah.
And so that was a really helpful thing. I've shared, so I would work until 5:30 or so. I'd get home around 6. And then, I have an alarm on my phone that by 9 p.m. I want to be in bed reading, so that I can have lights out by 10, so that I can be up by 5, right? Like this whole structure thing, which meant that from 6 until 9, that's my only time at home. And so if Doug is in the kitchen by himself for 40 minutes, and then I was personally ironing, because I like to iron 2 shirts, 2 pairs of slacks, so then I'm spending 40 minutes doing that. We've now collectively spent nearly half of the evening together doing opposite activities, that had I just sent it to the dry cleaners, it would have been maybe $3 or $4. Is that not worth the amount of time? So now when you put a cost association to all of the activities that we do, sometimes, no, the frugal you is going to say no, I can just do that myself. That's asinine for me to pay someone to do it. But then you're either going to buy time with your family, friends, whatever that is, or you're buying time so that you can make more money with the time that you have. Those are really the only 2 things that should happen.
Micheal, can we do maybe a class where it kind of shows in command how, if you are like Angela and me, who don't have a lot, but I had 2 listings and they went under contract, where we staggered it in opportunities with expiration dates and what needs to be done. Is that something that we can, kind of like what we saw in the last couple of Zoom call trainings, that could maybe help us buy a little bit extra of our time till we can get to that point where we can hire a transaction coordinator to help us get to the point, so we're not missing things that need to be done?
Yes. Yes and no. So if you're physically doing it, no matter what, it's going to cost you time. Right now, you might be learning from the class on it might be a little bit easier for you, right? Because now you'll know where to find those things, but it's never going to take the task off, nor is opportunities really doing any heavy lifting for you at all. However, to your point, just to make sure that there is a class where we can discuss opportunities around doing the physical opportunities, and then how to get paid using command, we can absolutely make sure that that training is there. All right, folks, well, it is 2:02. Some of you, including myself, are to be in bold pivot right now. So let's go ahead and jump out there. I hope that this was helpful and that there's a way for you to take some action items out of this. If not, too bad. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30 for Power Up.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.